You want to carve dragons. I know you want to carve dragons. And so today we're going to carve more dragons. I figured out how to put a dragon in a 1 inch by 1 inch block, 5 inches long. So today that's what we're going to do. We're going to carve dragons out of 1 inch long, 1 inch by 1 inch, 5 inch long blocks of basswood. Here be dragons. I want to point out real quick before we get too far into this that I've got finished here two distinct styles of dragons. The back half of the bodies, these are extremely similar. There's not really any variation here. But I got two different expressions going on, and they're separated by some details that I want to point out. One is the bottom dragon has a more severe, stern look, and the top one has a more fun-loving kind of puppy dog thing going on. The biggest difference is in the slant of the nose. The bottom one has the lower lip further out, and the nose is slanted in. The top one has the upper lip out, and the nose is slanted further out. Okay, so that's the biggest difference here. With the nose as well, we have a very small angle for each of the nostrils on the bottom one, and a very severe V cut right there and there for those nostrils to go in on the sides a little bit on the top one. On top of that, the eyebrow here is angled almost straight across, whereas on the top one, it's angled at a much greater degree upwards. And that gives him a bit of a more puppy dog look, right? A more softer expression where we got a more severe expression here in the bottom, okay? So we're gonna try to do something more similar, I think, to the bottom one on what we're gonna carve. But if you want to do something similar to the top one, you don't have a lot of things to change, as I just went over. Have that top nose angled outwards. Make sure that bottom lip goes on top rather than the top lip goes on top rather than the bottom lip going on top. You can put some teeth out like this guy has here if you want to, and then it's all in that brow and how you angle that. So that's what we're going for. That's what we're looking at. To do this carving, it is going to be knife only. I'm going to use my Beckwith Forge 1 3/4 inch rough out knife. You can use any knife you want to. That's just going to be the knife that I'm going to gravitate towards and use today. We are going to do this carving on a 1 inch by 1 inch block of basswood, and it is 5 inches long right there. Okay. Our measurements here, I'm going to put this tape measure on there and hold it in place while I read off the measurements. We are 1.5 inches or so, maybe about 1 5/8 for the head here. Okay, and that line right there is going to be for the head. I'm going to transfer that all the way around the carving. For our feet, the front of the front paw is 2 inches. The back of the front paw is 2 7/8. The front of the rear paw is 3 3 3/8. The front of the rear paw, and the rear paw's backside is about 4 3/8 or so. So that's roughly in position. Now for those front paws and back paws are coming up about 1/4 of an inch, and then jutting over the V cut up about 1/4 of an inch, and then carving over. I'm going to leave this top half of the leg open there, and I'm going to show you this finished carving here, what I'm looking at. And for the bottom one, we're going to round that over because we want the hips here to kind of come in towards those rear haunches. In living creatures, we have a rib cage, just like you and I do as well. And then towards the hips, we have no bone structure here except for the spine, and that kind of comes into the hips. So it's going to look more like a living creature if we bring that in towards those hips and expose those haunches a bit. If you've seen lizards running around your porch, it's getting into the summer months, you might have seen them. You can kind of see that kind of same thing going on. So that's what we're going to go for, okay? Now up here in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you're going to see the overlay. The overlay is the finished dragon that we're working on right here. This block of wood that I have in my hand is that same block of wood up here in this corner. That is what the finished carving is going to look like. So everything we do on here is going to be displayed up there. If you see me make a cut here, that's the result of what that cut is, okay? So without further ado, let's go ahead and start working on this. And again, knife only, we're not going to use any other tools. To start working on this, I'm going to start setting in the feet a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a stop cut right here along the front of that front paw. And I'm going to rock that knife blade in, and then I'm just going to carve right up to it and chip that out. So very easy, simple chip to do right off the bat. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side here. Do a stop cut right there along the front of the front paw, and then carve right up to it and chip that out. And then we're going to try to connect these two things across the back here, or across the bottom, and kind kind of carve right up there to them, chip it out, and chip that out. So we're starting to form the underside of that neck and opening up those front paws. We can do the same thing for the back paws. So I'm going to do a stop cut on the front of that back paw, and I'm going to carve from the back of the front paw right up to it like so. Okay, so you can kind of see that on the angle there on the side, from the back of the front paw right up to the back paw. Do the same thing on this side here. Do that stop cut and rock it in, and then from the back of the front paw right up to it. Okay, and again, and I'm going to connect those lines here as well, right in the back. Again, from the back of the front paws all the way up. And then stop cut that out. Like so. All right, so we've started to set in where those paws are going to go. Let's do a little bit more setting in or roughing into these paws. So we're going to get the tops of the feet in here and here, and along those haunches a little bit. And to do that, we're going to do little V cuts. You can see there's a little V line here and here. But rather than coming in straight on this angle, I'm going to angle the knife. So I'm going to come in straight, and I'm going to angle it in like so. Okay? Right like that. So you can see that angle. It's not coming straight in. It's coming in at an angle. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Just a bit of an angle like that. And then I'm going to carve up and in there to take that chip out. Up and in to take that chip out. Still didn't come out all the way. And that's going to happen sometimes to us. Happens to the best of us. Where you don't quite make your lines meet up. All right, same thing on the back side here. Coming straight in. I'm going to angle it up a little bit. Dig that in. Straight in. Angle it a little bit towards the inside. And then bring it straight in. And now I'm going to chip that out. Hey, that one popped out. So we got those two chips in there. Let's go ahead and do the chips on the other side. Again, straight in, angle the knife, sink that in, straight in, angle the knife, sink that in, and then we're going to go ahead and take that chip out. Same thing on the front paw here, straight in, angle the knife, bring it in. Angle. I think that is that angle right? No, it's not. I need to come a little bit further in here to correct, and to correct, like so. And that matches what the other side is a bit better, okay? Now that we've got that done, let's start looking at, we started to really set that in a little bit for the back side, right? So our feet are kind of set in roughly. Let's go ahead and grab our pencil, and let's worry about setting in our head now and the fins on our dragon's head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up about a ½ inch, and I'm going to put a dot right here in the middle. And the same thing here, a dot right there in the middle, and the same thing here, right in the middle. Okay, now let's adjust that dot. Let's come down about a third of the way up instead, and about a third of the way up instead. So let's take that one off. I can get you a measurement on that real quick here, because we're going to put those fins in. I don't want them to be exactly in the middle. So from the top, that's about 5/8 down, about 5/8 an inch down, okay? Now, that's not 5/8, is it? On this side? I should make them even, Johnny. That's about 3/4 an inch, that one. Let's adjust that one up a little bit, like so. That's pretty even. Yes, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to draw this line straight up to that corner, and this one's going to come down to about midway between that corner and where the dot is. Okay, so the top is going to be further back than the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. Okay, I'm going to come down to that point, like so, and I'm going to come down to about midway between this point and that line. It's about midway or so. Okay, that's going to put the top of that fringe further back than the bottom, Now for this one here, it's right in the middle. We're going to come right over to the corner and right over the corner. Nice and easy. Nothing complex, nothing hard. All right. And you can see what I'm doing here with this. This is the angle that we're replicating here, right? It's going further back on this side here and not as far there. So when I'm carving that, that's what I'm looking at. And you can see this in the overlay already. The overlay, that's the finished carving we're doing right here. You can see what I'm looking at setting up, okay? So that's what we're looking at setting up here. I'm going to carve that now the same way I did these notches. I'm going to come in straight on that angle. I'm going to angle that knife, and then that tip of the knife, I want to make sure I show this cut to you first, and don't do it until I show it to you, okay? The tip of that knife is going to go in deeper, and the back of the blade is going to come right down to where that line is, okay? So I'm not going to go past that line with the back of the blade here. The back of the blade is going to stop right on that line, and the tip of that knife is right there in that point, and it's buried in there, okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to come in straight in that line, and I'm going to angle the knife, and that tip is going to get sunk in further, like so, coming right down to the outer edge. That's where we're going to be at, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve up and in to carve that out. So the tip of the knife is going to trail where that cut went down to, all the way up to the top. And if it doesn't chip out automatically on you, that's okay. Recut your line. Recut from here. I can already feel it wanting to free up then, okay? And then take out any excess that got left behind to clean it up as you need to. And if you like the look of it, fantastic. But a lot of new carvers, what they do is they don't go deep enough with things. So maybe go a little bit deeper. Maybe deepen that line up a little bit more and spend some time cleaning it up and getting it a little bit deeper than maybe you did the first pass. And that's going to wind up being beneficial because it's going to provide more shadow to your carving. It's going to look a little bit better when you're done, okay? So the same thing over here, that 45-degree angle in, and then right here, straight in, 45-degree angle over, and coming in like so, with the back of that blade being right in line with that back of that line. And then we're going to come in right like so, and ooh, I've freed that one up pretty good. Now I'm going to deepen that a little bit. I'm going to recut that line, and just get a little bit more depth on it. And clean those lines up a bit, like that. Now, we're going to do the same thing on the top, right here, straight in and coming out to that corner, 45-degree angle. We're going to be deeper at the tip and shallower at the back of the line there. So right like so. Okay, you can see that angle I've got going in there. Same thing over here. Straight in, angle the knife blade, tip goes deeper, and we're going to rock it in as we need to. Okay, and you can see that back of the blade's going right down to the back of that line. And then we're just going to carve right up to it to free it up. If it didn't come straight, go ahead and fix it. Go ahead and adjust it as you need to. I got a little knot in there. You see that knot? It's terrible, but we'll work around it, okay? Now what we want to do, now we got all those big pyramid cuts in just right, we want to start to free up all of these lines here, right? Like this corner here, we're going to free that up because this is all going to be the neck here. Let me point out what I'm showing you here. And you can look on the overlay or you can look at this dragon here. We're going to free up each of these corners by bringing that body down into it here and up into it here, okay? So we're going to take out a lot of wood here and here in order to do that and replicate that neckline. So it's harder to explain and easier to show you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to 45 and follow that angle right here up. I'm going to follow that angle on this one right here up as well and just rock that in a little bit more deeply. And then I'm going to carve up to that line, and I'm going to carve up to that line. You follow? So we just freed up a lot of wood right there. And then we can carve right in and chip that out, right in, like so. So we're starting to free that up a bit more. We can do the same thing on this side. Recut that line, and depending on your grain direction, you can adjust how you carve to free this up. And The grain direction on this carving, let's talk about that for a minute, because it's different than most carvings that we do, right? Because the grain direction here is standing like this, straight vertical, okay? The grain's traveling up and down. And most of the carvings we did, like Shrimpy, if you've been on the channel for long, right? Grain direction is traveling up and down on him. But these carvings here, the grain direction is traveling left and right because this stick is sitting like this. And so we have to adjust some of the cuts that we're going to be doing, especially when we get into working in the face here, according to how that grain direction is. So when you're thinking about it and how you orient this in your mind, orienting it like this, vertical, might help you, especially if you've done a lot of carvings with the grain direction going up and down. It might help you to orient it in your mind as this direction and not this direction when you're thinking of the carving. So if you think about this as being the top and the tail as being the bottom, that might help you. I'm going to probably be referencing it as this being the front, and this being the back, this being the top, this being the bottom. But depending on what you need to do to make sure you're carving with the grain direction and thinking about the grain direction properly, do that and make sure that you're thinking about that and cognizant of it as you move forward. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Now, I'm just going to be working on freeing up this neck a bit more. I can take off a lot of this corner back here too. So I can round this corner up all the way up into here from the back haunches forward. I can go further back if I wanted to, but we don't necessarily need to right now. And I'm going to go ahead and take these saw marks off of the top of this carving as I round this out as well, okay? So why am I taking the saw marks off? Let's take a real good look here, okay? I get that closer up in the camera. Where I've got the blade touched, it's nice and smooth, and this rough section, that's the saw marks that are left in the carving. Those saw marks are going to take paint and stain differently than the part that's had the knife blade hit on it, okay? So that's why we want to get all those saw marks off before we finish the carving, because otherwise we're going to get these blotchy spots on the carving where it looks terrible because not all of it has gotten those rough, patchy saw marks off. If you've carved on it and got blade marks on that instead, it's going to look pretty good. It's going to look a lot better than those saw marks. All right. Now I'm just going to keep adjusting this neckline down in there. And I think that's looking a lot better. Now let's work on the bottom side of this neckline here. Same thing. I'm going to 45-degree cut that, and then I'm just going to guide this blade nice and easy there, like so. Same thing on the other side here. Like that. We can bring that in further along the underside of the neck. And this is where that grain direction can get you, because it's wanting to tear a little bit right here. So I want to be very careful, not pushing too hard with my knife. But I need to free up that paw a bit more too here. Okay, I'm going to cut in there. I might cut down to it. It's not the best angle, I think. So I might adjust it. Oh, there we go. That's not too bad. You can see I'm kind of splitting it here. I'm going to be very careful about that. I don't want to split the carving. I ran into exactly the problem I was talking about really quickly, didn't I? It's hard to think about because you're carving up. So this is the vertical direction that we're looking at. So I'm going to orient the carving like that, and then I can think about it better on how to remove the stuff that I need to. That's much easier because now I'm thinking about it right. So I'm running into the same problem that I'm telling you to worry about. And if I'm hitting that problem and thinking about that problem while I'm talking to folks, well, it's gonna be a cinch that you probably do too, you know? So don't feel bad if you struggle with that at all on this one. Okay, so we've got that neck freed up a bit coming down to that head. Now, for the front of this head, like I said, for this guy, we're going to have that schnoz back farther. So I'm going to go about a quarter of an inch out here, and I'm going to carve that front corner off like so. Okay, I'm going to take that off, and you can do paring cuts to get that off if you want to, or you can do push cuts, however you want to. There's more than one way to carve every carving. So you can do this right here and carve all the way down to knock all that off. You can carve right like so, and just keep doing it till you get that whole angle done. You can do paring cuts. I prefer paring cuts because I'm very accustomed to them. With a paring cut, you're keeping that left thumb here out of the way, and you're using that palm to do the movement. This is the movement right here. The palm is working the knife, and that thumb is staying out of the way. And so I can do it rather quickly, and I have a lot of force behind me. Do not do this if you're not going to be very mindful of what this thumb is doing. You're not bringing this thumb up here to the knife and doing that because you'll cut yourself. If you need to, wear a carving glove on your offhand. Get some thumb wrap like this and put it around this thumb if you're going to be wind up not paying attention to that thumb and not keeping it down here out of the way like I'm doing. I'm very accustomed to that, doing that paring cut. And that paring cut gives you a whole lot of leverage when cutting on ingrain. So it is easier to do this removal here, this wood removal, by doing a paring cut than it would be to do a push cut like so. So if you want to do it a little bit easier, do a paring cut, but be very mindful of cutting yourself and of where your thumb is while you're doing it. I don't want anyone getting hurt. And I want you wearing gloves. I want you being safe. So we got a little bit of an angle there, but I want to take a little bit more off. We still got those saw marks here in the top portion right there. Excuse me. Like so. All right, I think that's pretty good. We got just a bit of an angle on there, nothing crazy. All right. Now we want to get a bit of an angle on the top of the carving, and we're going to come in and just put a soft kind of angle in here, okay? You can put it a lot deeper if you want to. This is going to change the look of your dragon. If you put it a lot deeper, that schnoz will be up high if you want him to have it up real high, you know, but I want to have a more severe look, but I don't want it to be crazy thick and crazy deep. And you can see that angle is right here that we're looking at, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in just a bit in front of that line right there and just carve and rock that line right there in. And you can see how deep I got, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing, equal distance from the front, and carve over to it. Now I'm going to deepen it, come a little bit further back, a little bit further forward, and carve down into it. And then free that up. You can see that angle right there from either side. It's about where I wanted it. I can go a little bit deeper if I want to and change the look of this guy just a little bit, like so. Yeah, that's just perfect. Okay, now we're going to take the bottom edge off this here. I'm going to keep getting a little bit deeper too as I go to take that hard edge off of him, off that chin. I'm going to leave that point there and just kind of take it in from that section there, okay? So it gets you a couple of good views. You can see what we're doing. Do the same thing over here. A little bit at a time. Take more and get deeper with it as you go, and then take a look at it. Is that even? I could take a little bit more off this side to make it even like the other one is. So let's do that right there. Is that pretty even? It's close. And that's pretty close. I like that a lot. I think that's what we're going to stick with, okay? So we got that done. Now let's do the same thing on the top, but because of this 45-degree angle here, we're going to do it differently. We're going to come in the corner, and come in on the corner like so, and then we're going to deepen that, and deepen it again, just like so, to create that shelf like that. The same thing over here, okay? So a little bit at a time, and then we deepen it. And then before we get too deep, let's take a look. What do we need to do to adjust to make it the same on each side? Well, I can bring this angle here down a bit more, I think. Let's take a little bit more off the bottom side and the top side. Same thing here. Is that pretty close? That's pretty close. Take a little bit off, right like so, to so. And that's pretty darn close. And judge your carving, right? My cuts aren't the same as your cuts. Take a look at things, move things around, look at it from different angles to see what you might need to adjust. You can see like this horn here is a little bit further back than this horn, and we can fix that now, or we can leave it. We can say, you know what, maybe that horn on the back of his head goes back a little bit farther on this dragon. And I think that's what I'm going to say. I think I'm just going to leave that one here a little bit further back than this one, and I'm going to say it's okay. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take off all of these saw marks through here. We're about to do more details on the head, and it's best to get those off now when it's easy. And they've got these large flat areas on here. So let's do that right now. We don't need those lines on there. We had those marks. So we might as well take these saw marks off. Get rid of them since we have the opportunity. Where else do I need to get? A little bit right there. And a little bit on the underside of that neck. There we go. Okay. Alrighty, so what else do we want to work on? We need to set in our brow line. And how we do that brow line, we're going for this kind of guy's look right here, okay? So you can see we've got that nose set in the same way, but that brow line is kind of coming across right here, and that eye is setting up underneath it, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to pencil in a line right like so, a little bit less than the angle that's already going across there. Just not quite straight across, a little bit up, not up to the angle or to the degree of this guy here. That's pretty high. More closer to this guy, more severe. And if you don't like it, you can adjust it down a little bit more if you want to. But I think that's a decent angle. Almost straight front. And adjust it. Look at both sides and adjust however you feel necessary to get it just right. And I'm going to come in. Let's see here. Look at this guy here. I like the way he turned out. So there's another thing too to do. Remember, orient yourself. The grain direction is going vertical. Make sure you think about that. And I'm going to try to come in straight down, okay, on that carving, straight in, but at a little bit of an angle, but the angle that I drew on there, of course, but straight in on this plane here. And just kind of rock that in a bit to set in that brow line. Now I'm going to try to carve right up to it. It should just chip out like so. Nice and easy. Now I want to bring this flat plane here all the way up to that corner right here. So I'm going to start trying to do that. But the issue is that if I do it from this direction, it's going to split because we've got a vertical grain direction coming down here. So I'm going to try to do this from here with a paring cut. And I'm just going to carve right like so. And chip that out. And I'm going to do it again and get right up to that corner like so. And I'm just going to chip that out, okay? And so you can see I set that in right there beneath that new brow we've got going on. Do the same thing over here, coming in straight along that top angle. I'm going to sink that knife in just a bit. And I come in right here and chip that out, okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing where I need to flatten this angle out from here up to that area there. And I think that I can do it like so. Thinking about that grain direction, I want to come in to free that up, but not, I can't come in like so and do it because the grain's going this way. If I come in like that, it'll just tear that grain. So that's what we're avoiding by doing this way, okay? So I think that we've got a good brow set up for those eyes. Now, to pencil those eyes in a bit, I'm just going to go and about a quarter of the way in and a quarter of the way in, and just an upside down U kind of thing going on right there. Same thing on the other side, about like from this distance here, about a quarter of the way in, about a quarter of the way in, and just pencil in that eye like so. And take a look at the top here. Is that even? Does one eye need to be moved forward more or backwards more to make it even? And that eye right there could be moved a little bit. So I'm gonna erase that eye. I'm gonna take a look here, and I'm gonna try to make that front part start around the same spot. Right there. So this eye is a little bit further forward now than it was. Right? You just come down a little bit more. And that's better. I like the way it's turning out better. Okay? So we want to carve those eyes in. We also want to carve in our nostrils and our jawline. So let's look at doing that. Let's think about this. For the other guy here, we took a bit of an angle off on each side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and do a little paring cut here. And I'm going to try to cut off about this angle right here off the front of this nostril. Like so. The same thing in the other direction. It's a little bit easier to cut this direction. So be very careful, very mindful of how easy that knife pulls through there. And a push cut here. So we've got those two planes right there. You can kind of see, right like so. And we're going to use those for that nostril. Now, before I get too far, I'm going to round all of this off here. Doesn't need to have those hard edges. We've made those hard edges as we're carving these angled lines, but we don't need them to be there. So I round it off all the way around here, all the way around there. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw in our mouth from here. And we want the bottom part of the mouth to be out further than the top part. So we're going to do a stop cut along this line, and then we're going to cut down to it. And this guy's getting up a bit too high. We want to have room for the nostrils and teeth. So we're going to put that a little bit lower. So what I'm going to do is, let's start in the front here, okay? Having it right about there, about a third of the way up maybe. And carve it right over here. Carve it right over there. Is it even? I think I like the way that looks. I think it looks good. Okay. Now you can put those teeth right here in the corner, or you can put them further in here. If I'm going to put them in the corner, I might make myself a flat plane here to put those teeth on. Right? See what I'm doing there? Just rounding off a little section there, a flat section. I can put those teeth on and make it easier to carve them in. I don't want to if I want to have them on this side here, I don't want to put them right on a corner because it'll be too difficult to do. So now I can put a big tooth in like so. I can put a smaller tooth here. I could put no tooth, just have one tooth on one side. I'd give a different look too if I wanted to. I can go ahead and do another tooth on this side here, like so. And then we're going to put in two nostrils. It'll be kind of triangular shaped. One right here, and then one right here. And are those nostrils even? I think they are. Bring that down a little bit right there. And so, yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. And I think that's what we're going to go with. So let's go ahead and carve in those nostrils first. That's the easiest thing. I'm going to come straight in on that angle here, straight in, tip in, sink it deep, and have the back of that blade come in right at the edge of that, or the back of that line. Same thing over here. And then we're just going to carve up to it and take that triangular chip right out. Oh, I didn't get it all the way. There we go. So just like that. Same thing over here. When I talk about the back of that blade, I mean where the foot of the blade ends right at the edge of the line we drew. That's what I was talking about. Same thing here, and have that foot of the blade ending right there where that line stopped. And then we're going to carve right up to it. Take that chip out, and there's our two nostrils. And those are looking dragon-like and fantastic. Now for this, we're going to take out wood up to that lip, right? Up to this mouth, and we're going to take wood out around those teeth. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do a cut straight in along one side of that tooth. I'm going to do the same thing along the other side of that tooth. And then I'm going to cut in right here along the side of that mouth, okay? Now I'm going to carve up to that tooth, not taking out much depth, just a little bit of depth, just enough to set that tooth in, like so. You see that? Get the shadow in it there. That's not a whole lot. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here, where I set in that line there, set in this line right here along this edge of the tooth. And now I'm going to carve. I can carve from this direction if I want to. Carve down along that edge of that tooth and into that mouth, like so. You can reverse this knife and do a paring cut if this is easier for you, up to that tooth, like that. Now we're going to do the inside edges of this mouth here, or the front edges. Do a stop cut along that edge of the tooth, stop cut along that edge of the tooth, and then we're going to cut that flat plane around the front of the mouth here, okay? I'm going to make sure that tip goes to the edge of that tooth. I don't want to bring the back of the blade over to it, so I'm bringing that tip to the edge of that tooth, like so. And I'm not going to go all the way around. Now I can try to carve up to that tooth and try to bring that front of the mouth around and just take little bits out until I get out what I need. We don't need to have this be really deep. It doesn't need to be crazy deep. We just need to set it apart. Have it just out enough that you can see the delineation between those big teeth and that jawline. And that's pretty close right there. There's nothing wrong with that. He is looking very dragon-like. Tell me that's not looking like a dragon on the front of that carving, huh? That's looking like a dragon if I ever saw a dragon, and I have never seen a dragon in real life. I've imagined a lot of dragons, I've just never seen one. So I think that's working out real well. Now, if you want to, for these eyes, you don't have to use your rough out knife. You can use a detail knife if that's easier for you, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to just cut out the eyes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a straight cut along the back of the eyes. So straight cut coming down along that brow line, okay? And now for the outside edges of the eyes, I'm going to angle it in and curve that line right around like so. And the same thing over here. So straight cut along that brow line we did, right like so. And then for the eye itself, I'm going to angle it in towards the eye. You can see the angle I'm coming in at, right? And follow that line right around like so. And you can see that one already popped out all the way, right? It's sunk in. It's a little shadow there. Let's do this one again. And that one popped out too. So we got sunken holes for these eyes here. And that is just fine. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can try to carve them out as bulbs. I like to do the sunken in effect. These ones here, I carved out as little bulbs, right? And if you want to do that, you can absolutely do that. Kind of the same thing going on in that one there. I like to do differences to show you what all the options you have are here. If you don't like this and you already did this, you can carve it off right there and then retry it and do it differently. But I think that's going to be really neat. We'll paint some eyes in there. It'll be sunken in, so it'll provide more shadow as we get this done. I'm going to like that. I think I'm going to like that a lot, but clean that up a little bit right there. Okay. Now, right here on the nostrils here, on the sides of the nose here, we're going to put 2 V cuts in here and here, here, and here. Those little V cuts are going to provide a little nostril flare to the carving. Oh, interest to the nose. Like so. Doesn't he look more ferocious now? Look at that. Looking more ferocious. Looking more ferocious. I love the way this is turning out. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. Oh, it's going to be so fun. Okay. With all that said and done, where are we at? Where are we at? We can start to, if you want to, carve a little bit of out at the bottom of that chin here. You can kind of carve it up and in and round things out here a little bit if you want to. I like the look of that. What I mean is, like I'm carving up and in and then down and over. And that provides a little bit of a scoop on the bottom of that chin. I like the look that does. So if you want to do something similar, you absolutely can. Take those hard edges off here. And at this point, I'm just I'm nitpicking the face and head. Let's go ahead and move on to the body. All right. So for the body, let's go ahead and set in the rear feet. We're going to do a stop cut right here, and then we're going to carve up to the back of the rear paws. Same thing back here, stop cut, and carve up to the back of the rear paws, and then connect those lines across the back, like so, like so. That's fantastic. All right, now we're going to do the rest of our paws here and the rest of those hind haunches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve in at a 45-degree angle along that back edge all the way down here, pop out, and then I'm going to carve right up to that back haunch like so. I'm going to bring that up in behind those back paws a bit, and we're going to put an indentation, if you will, right here where the chest comes up into the front of the back paws. I want the chest to be deeper, closer to these front paws, and shallower up here next to these back paws. So we're going to shape this, and we're going to bring that belly down like this right here and up into those feet. So let me show you how this is done. We're going to do the same thing here we just did back here. So you can have 45-degree angle to start to shape this end. Like so. And now what we're going to do is start to bring this up here into those feet, making it more shallow up underneath those rear paws. Like that. A little more out of here. I'm just going to keep rotating the carving, looking at this as I work on it. You can kind of see where I'm going here, right, like so, right? Same thing there. That's looking a bit better. I want to bring that chest back up here a little bit more for that front paw. A bit better. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to round off this back haunch on either side. And that one goes a bit higher than this one. So let's go ahead and bring that up higher. Like so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the apex here, and I'm just going to carve it back and around. I'm going to do the same thing from here and carve up to that apex. Alrighty, and now I'm going to carve down to that line just to try to free it up, right? That's all I'm doing. Just freeing that up. Be mindful of where your blade's going, of what's in the way of it. Keep your fingers out of the way. That's starting to free that up pretty well. Take off that hard corner back here. Like that. Making good progress. Same thing here. right like that. Carve that out. And we're doing pretty good. We're making good progress on that. We're starting to free that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep taking off some of this wood here around the back haunches. Bring things into the area where these haunches are and try to like thin out the hips, so to speak. That's what I'm doing right there, thinning that out. I'm going to do the same thing on this other side here, thinning them out up to the hips. Just, I'm holding the knife. Like that. There we go. That's working out pretty well. Okay, so what we're looking at to do here with the back of this guy is we're going to create a large tail that comes around here and comes up to the front, which is not as difficult as you might think and a little bit harder at the same time, because we want to create an indentation right about there where it's shallower on the bottom side, and we can kind of take most of this wood off down here, like this section right there can be gone. And on the top, kind of same thing here, we're going to bring the tail around and up like so, and have it come circle like so. All right, that's the gist of what we're doing here. Okay, so to start on getting this done, I'm going to start taking off as much wood as I need to round this back edge off. You follow? We're just going to start rounding this off from the back haunches. We're also going to start taking off a lot of wood in the bottom here. I showed you that angle there we're taking off. We'll start taking that off right now. Off the back, coming back from the feet and up like so. And curve this around. And as we get closer to this middle section, we're going to get more shear with this angle and just start to almost just take off the saw mark by the time you get to the far side, and then just round these corners off. And I'll show you what this looks like here in a second. Okay, so you can see we got it a soft corner on this side, a harder corner on this side. You follow? Coming up here, and we can round this corner off a bit more. All right. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do like a 45-degree angle right here. Okay, 45 degrees like on this plane, trying to come in like at this angle here, right like so. And I'm just gonna come in along that line I drew, right up into those haunches, and then I'm gonna do a relief cut like so up into that. Okay, and that starts the bottom side of that fold. Now we don't need as much of this wood as we have up underneath that fold, so we can start to remove some of that. And then if we want to deepen that, we absolutely can. That's looking better. So you can kind of see what I've got going on there, right? I got a little V cut up in there, and we're going to clean it up as we go. But it's like a pyramid kind of to put that up in there, right? Like it's folded up and around. You kind of start to see it a little bit more. And we can kind of start to take those angles off to where it makes more sense to our brain. Like, oh, this part's going to be down a little bit lower if that's the way that curve is. And that looks a lot better, right? It's kind of curving up and then over, all right? So now we want to do the same thing here. So we got that little mark here, right? Like this oblong kind of thing going on. Well, I'm going to start right up here at the top, and I'm going to kind of 45 it into that point. Same thing here. And take that out, right like so. And elongate that down. Now you can start to see how this is coming together. See how it's starting to look like it's kind of folded up and around? Now we're going to do the same thing we did in the haunches to the end of the tail here. Like so. And like so. Carve out whatever wood you need to soften those lines. And you can see that those lights really can make it hard to see sometimes, but yeah. That's looking pretty good, right like that. Let's deepen it between that haunch and that tail. Put a little bit more indentation in there. Separate them out. I'm going to take off those saw marks on those feet too, because those shouldn't be there anymore. We don't need them. I'm going to soften those haunches out. Take the saw marks off up here. And go ahead right now and go around the carving. Take all the saw marks off you can. We're not putting a lot of detail onto the back half of the body, and so getting those saw marks off now is a great time to do that. Like so. I'm also softening that waistline again into the rear of the body. You know, talking about bringing that waist in a little bit, gives it more of a lizard-like appearance, right? Now, what we also want to do is we want to separate the feet, and that's easily done. What we're going to do is we're just going to do a V cut right down the middle, and then we can widen it out however we need to. So I'm going to start one side all the way through, then the other side, making sure the tip meets where the other side did, and then same thing for the back, like so, and like so, to V-cut that out. Then 45s on each of those corners to soften those feet out. 45s in the back as well. And the same thing for the front. Like so. That's looking good. Good progress there. Deepen that. And you're going to take a look around on your carving, eyeball from different angles, figure out what it is that you might want to remove to make him look a little bit better, to bring more life to him, however you want to do it. Something I want to do that I've done on these other two examples as well is to add a little bit of frill to the neckline. You can see that we did right there, right? And you can add these frill or scales along the whole carving if you want to, but I'm just going to draw some little scales here, okay? So like one V right there. I can do another V thing going on right here, coming from the middle of that one up like so, right like that. And we can do the same thing over here on this side and kind of bring them in to connect them, all right? So I'm going to do one bigger one there. I'm going to do one starting from the same corner, like so. And then we'll do one in the middle here that comes off of those points, like that. And then one that comes off the middle of that one and comes down to here. Comes right down into that. You follow? So we can kind of bring those around together. Let's do the same thing over here. And just do a big one maybe in here. Bring that up to there. And again, that point, and then join them together. And we can do the same thing here. They don't have to stop right there. We can bring them up a little bit if we want to. Right? And all we're doing for these is we're going to do straight cut, carve up to it, and chip it out. Okay? Carve down to that, chip it out, and there's the first one in. A little straight cut, carve up to it, straight cut, carve up to it. If you get a little chip out, it's fine. Take the chip out that you got and then recut it to fix it as best you can. Like so. You follow? And then we'll recut that. So I've got 3 good ones in right there right now, right? If you got the little fuzzies in there, take your stiff bristle brush and do that. And remember all the pencil marks, we're going to scrub this carving. When we get done, we're going to take it in the bathroom, we're going to scrub him up. So we'll be able to take care of most of those pencil marks. They'll be gone. We won't have a problem with them. Okay? So you got that little V cut done there. Let's do another one coming from that corner. Carve that down and in. Over to that one. Let's do one right here too. Let's put one on the inside of that. And again, you can break these out as far as you want to, or as shallow as you want to. You don't have to have them come off all this far back like I did there. You can have them stop if you want to. Put another one down here even. Right? They don't have to be the same on each side. They can be slightly different. Right? It's frill, like on a dragon, right? And you've seen live dragons before, right? Oh, you haven't? So that means they can be whatever they want, whatever we want them to be, right? Because no one's seen one. We can make this frill however we want to. Doesn't have to be exactly one way or another. A lot of people have very, very strong opinions on what a dragon does or doesn't look like. And yeah, we can either go along with that or choose not to. Either way we want to. I like carvings like this. They're a little more detailed too, because if you're watching this painting closely, you'll see I've made mistakes. And I just redo it. I just recarve it. Any spot I got a mistake, I just redo it. I got some more frill on this side than I do on this side. So let's go ahead and add a bit more here for fun. We don't have to. We could stop. Maybe we want to. Maybe I like doing frill. Yeah. And there is more of the frill completed and in position, like so. Like so. And I think that I want to bring this in more. That front foot. Like so. Do I do the same thing on this side? I do, I think. And I'm going to take a little bit of an angle on these feet here. Smooth those lines out. .45, all these hard edges and those paws. on this back buttocks area. I'm not going to give this dragon cake because I don't think he necessarily needs it. We don't need to give him a big butt, right? It's going to be hidden anyway up underneath all of that tail. So, yeah. I'm just cleaning up lines, softening hard corners to finish him out. And I think that'll do it. I think that finishes up our 5-inch long, 1-inch by 1-inch dragon, all taken care of. So I'm gonna take him over to the washroom, and I'm gonna take him to the bathroom. I'm gonna give him some scrubbing, and you'll see what it looks like here in just a moment. So bear with me. And there we go, all washed up. I scrubbed him with soap and water for about 2 to 3 minutes under the sink, and that really cleans up a carving. I cannot express how much a carving really comes out when you do that. So definitely do that. And you can spend a little more time if you want to cleaning up like the feet and whatnot. This is really simple stuff, right? We're not doing anything complex. When it comes to painting, I normally do a painting video, but the painting videos don't do very well, so we're not going to do a whole painting video. What I'd like to do is I'd like to give you the highlights here, right? These are all solid colors. This is a solid purple, and I used this Cherry Merlot, painted this whole carving, Cherry Merlot, watered down, and then I went back over him with True Red, dry brushed heavy True Red across the whole thing. The teeth are white, the eyes are yellow, and a little black line for the eyes. And that's it. That's all I did. This guy is a dark green with another color, crocodile green, dry brushed on top. So I did a watered down dark green over the whole thing, dry brushed crocodile green, and then yellow for the eyes and a black slit. And that's it. Just those 2 colors of green, yellow for the eyes, and a black slit in the eyes. And that's it. Nothing complicated there. This guy, you can paint however you want to. You can paint him as a black dragon and just do black paint. If you were going to do that, I would consider doing black and dark gray. Maybe paint him black completely and then heavy dry brush with a dark gray and then yellow eyes with a black slit. Or you can do white eyes. You can do whatever color eyes you want to. And that's all I got for you today. So this blue one here is the one we just finished. And I don't want to have a painting video today because painting videos don't do very well. Plus this painting is so simple and so easy. Let's go over it real quick. For the blue guy, it is a dark navy blue and then light, heavy dry brush teal across the entire thing. That was it. That's all we got going on there. The eyes is just yellow paint with a black slit and then white for the tooth. And that is it. The same thing goes for the green guy. He is heavily painted with a dark green and then heavily dry brushed with a succulent green across the top, yellow for the eyes, black for the slit. And for the red guy, he is heavily painted with a maroon color and then heavily dry brushed with a true red and then yellow for the eyes, black for the slit, and white for the tooth, and that's it. It is not a complicated carving to paint, and with the dry brushing, they really turn out well. They really came out absolutely fantastic. So I like the way that they turned out. I hope you do too. Listen, I really appreciate you sticking around at the end of the video, watching the whole thing. It really helps out the video, the channel, and helps it grow. If you've liked the video, if you've enjoyed the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Outside of that, head over to Instagram and Facebook. Give me a like and a follow over there so you can keep track of what's going on in the community and what all I might be posting in the future as we go forward. I really appreciate your time. Watch one of the videos that are popping up on the screen, and I'll see you next time. Bye.